We are almost live. 5, 4, 3, 2, go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another session of Lane. Happy to have you. And today's session is going to be fantastic. I've already seen it, how it's going to go. We have an interesting topic today, which is how to network and craft your story for the MBA application. I usually tell people when I talk to them that America is so big on networking and a lot of cultures. It's just such an American thing. And everything is networking. And we have two wonderful people today talking about this topic, and they're going to two very, very fabulous business schools. If you do nothing, if you don't attend any session today, I would advise you to, put your ears literally on the ground because you're going to be getting really good tips today. So today we're gonna have Olamide Amosu, who's an MBA admit Darden Business School, University of Virginia, and Ifeoluwa Agumbo for me, who's going to Oxford. You know, they had wonderful scholarships. If you didn't know, now you know, and they will give you really, really, really great tips today. So please give them virtual claps. Thank you for coming. It's such a pleasure to have you guys. So now I'm going to start by saying that, like I said, everything is networking. I say this a lot of times. I mean, one of our career coaches in schools kept saying one thing to us over and over: "You are not in your country. You are in America now. If they do not like you, no matter how good your background or your profile is, you are not going to get in. Period." So therefore, and part of it has to do with racial dynamics in America because they want to see that you are comfortable with people that are different from you and don't look like you. So this is not my session, so I'm going to start with um asking Olamide and Ife Olua to just say a few things before we begin. So Olamide, over to you.
Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. So before we actually start, so Samuel would do the introduction and tell us a bit about Lane and why we are here today before we start the panel session. And then I will introduce myself and then if I can jump on.
All right.
Awesome. Once again, thank you everyone for joining us today. This is one of the many sessions we've been having, and we hope that for the past 13 to 14 webinars that you've been a part of, you picked up a couple of new things. But I just wanted to we like to constantly remind you about why we're doing this. You would realize that, for many days you've been a part of this. We haven't tried to sell you anything. We haven't tried to sell you consulting services. We haven't tried to sell you this product or that product. We haven't done that because of our vision and our mission. Of course, we value your contribution in time and money because it helps us achieve our vision of building an economically and politically inclusive Africa that is self-perpetuating. And we want to do that by equipping you to increase your capability. By increasing your capability, we hope that you can then identify, support, and execute practical ventures in Africa that will continue to ensure that our continent is not going in the back direction or going in the backward direction, but moving forward. Our aims and objective right now, but first of all, right now, what we're trying to do is to increase Africa's representation in global business schools. By doing that, we're hoping that the percentage of people who are more concerned about the future of Africa would increase. But not just people who are concerned about the future of Africa, people who can take tangible steps to make sure that it is heading in the right direction. And we hope that the MBA program provides people that opportunity to do that. So our aims and objective are in fivefold. How do we intend to achieve this vision of building an economically and politically inclusive Africa? The first thing we hope to do is to empower young Africans by supporting 1,000 of them in the top 150 global MBAs in 7 years. Well, out of these 1,000 Africans, maybe Africa doesn't need 1,000 Africans. Maybe they only need 100 Africans who are well equipped in the right place to be able to achieve that goal. The second thing is we hope to strengthen communal connections between many African MBA clubs. What we've often seen that African student clubs are often siloed. And we hope that by connecting all these clubs together, we can speak with one voice and cause stakeholders to make decisions that favor our growth. The third one will be to be a catalyst for Africa's financial independence. Because if you're working in Google, you're in a lot more better financial position than where you're working right now. We hope that you no longer have to worry about food. You no longer have to worry about school fees. And you can concern yourself with the higher goal of life of transforming the whole continent. But you still have to struggle with Lagos traffic, if you still have to struggle with school fees, if you still have to struggle with the exchange rate, you're not likely to think big picture. The fourth one is to bridge the gap between quality MBA programs and talented Africans. Well, first of all, we have defined quality in the wrong light by creating a sense of scarcity. We're often limited to about top 10, top 20 schools without knowing that there are top 200, top 500 schools in the whole of the world that is able to take every one of us. Many people don't need to step in Harvard to make the best out of their lives. It is not a requirement for success. So by just painting a picture of the greater availability of opportunities spread across the world and hoping that we will take all of that to create more opportunities in Africa for Africa. We hope that that would help at the end of the day. And lastly, we want to continue to create that pipeline of promising MBA candidates by partnering with African universities, various national youth service programs, employees, and relevant organizations in Africa. We want people who are capable for leadership roles tomorrow to have the right kind of education. And if that means supporting them earlier on to make sure their career path, they're well prepared to take on the opportunity 5, 6, 7, 10 years down the line, we want to do that. Well, our guiding principles are easy. As a member or resident in the city of Lane, you agree to the following principles. You agree to be selfless. We constantly see behaviors in our group that sometimes show selflessness, other times selfishness. We don't want to see selfishness anywhere. We don't want people who hoard information. You don't succeed. Your success is not success if you hide information from others. If you think that by sharing with it, you're messing up your own chances, that's not how we think here. Where people who are even sharing opportunities within the same school that they're going to apply to, and they haven't applied to those schools yet. Selflessness is one. Diversity is key. We really appreciate diversity. We hope our numbers balance out. We hope we don't have to deal with anything that has to do with tribe. We don't have to worry about gender because we want to make sure that everyone is included in the things we do. Creativity is also necessary. All of the programs we're hosting and presenting to you right now was born out of the creativity of other people, ideas and possibilities that we can execute the things that we welcome. Inclusiveness. It's making a promise to say, I will not exclude or marginalize for whatever reason anyone or group of people I may or others may consider minority. Instead, in the presence of a commitment to Lane's vision, I will actively seek ways to carry everyone along. Last one will be accountability. We expect that you understand that accountability to be the obligation to explain, justify, and take responsibility for your actions as relating to or affecting Lane. We hope that on no condition will you withhold that responsibility obligation from yourself or from the community. So feel free to join us if you're an African or you know what it looks like to live in Africa. You must be at least 20 years of age. We're hoping that you're self-motivated, and we're hoping that you're equally academically motivated for an MBA program. So on that note, I say welcome to our guest speakers, Ife and Olamide Raimat. We thank everyone for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful session.
Thank you, Samuel. Really, really thank you for that. And thank you for Lane Vision. Amazing, amazing vision. So I'm gonna, hand it over to Olamide now so we can get the ball rolling.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Please let me know if you can hear me very well because I can't really hear a lot that well. Okay, awesome. So thank you very much, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you're calling in from, dialing in actually. So my name is Olamide. You can also call me Raima. I would usually say that I am the junior partner in charge of programs and innovation at Lane. However, today I'm on the panel session, so I'll introduce myself professionally. So I'm a marketing and strategy professional. I have 11 years experience working across West and East Africa. And outside that as well, I'm also very passionate about empowerment. I'm passionate about women and also helping people in general. And so that's part of the reasons why I'm also a member of Lane and I also volunteer as well. I am also an incoming MBA candidate at Darden School of Business, University of Virginia. I would say outside all of that as well, I love to blog, I love to explore, and I'm into photography as well. But yeah, I hope that sums it up.
Okay, we can over to you.
Okay, so just checking that everyone can hear me as well. Am I good?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. If you're in Nigeria, good evening. If you're anywhere else in the world, hi. I'm not going to start saying good morning or good afternoon. But hi, everyone. Nice to meet everyone. I like that. Okay, I can see that we're 40 people on this session, so that's great. I was just chatting with Olamide and saying, it's like,
You're muted.
can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Awesome. My name is Ifeoluwa. I trained as a lawyer and worked as a lawyer in Nigeria for about 4 years. Started out my career working in the office of Nigeria's vice president, then moved to a corporate law career and did that for a bit. And now I'm an incoming MBA candidate at Said Business School, University of Oxford. I'm currently doing and sort of like wrapping up a pre-MBA internship at a tech unicorn in Lagos, Flutterwave. And that's been exciting because primarily I'm looking to pivot from a core career in law to a career in tech and strategy. Outside of being serious, I like to fast a lot. Just with my people, bond with my family, friends, watch live theater, travel, anything fun, Sha. You find me there. You know, it's nice to be on this session. I'm hoping that Olamide and I, who is my personal person, I'm hoping that we can, just support you guys the best we can. We love to do this, and it's great to be doing it with her. I don't think we've had a combined session together, but it's the first one we're doing together, right? So yeah, we're very excited to be here, and hopefully we can. Okay.
Thank you, sir. So yeah, as you can see, we're going to learn a ton of things today. So one of the first, your encounters with admissions or with a student or an alumni is usually they want to get a sense of your background and what you've done. But I wanted to ask, my first question is, when you're told, tell me about yourself, tell me about your resume.
Ola. Sorry, we can't hear you very well. I thought I was the only one, but like everyone is saying the same thing now.
1 second.
Okay, I was checking my AirPods as well. I thought it was just me. Okay, great. I think we can hear you loud and clear now.
Can you hear me?
I think it's still a bit low.
But it's better.
1 second. Let me try and move because I'm usually doing meetings here and I've never had this.
Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Oh, this is much better. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay. The internet in that room is probably not as good. Okay. So, like I was saying, when you're talking to an alumni or student or admissions, one of the first things that usually happens is that they ask you to tell them about yourself. So I wanted to find out how you do that. Do you have a standard pitch that you tell admissions, or how do you essentially go about it? What is that process like for you? Any of you can go in.
Okay, so I think I will go first. So when I'm actually asked to introduce myself, I always start with my name, or if I feel like you are not able to pronounce my name, I'll tell you the shorter version. So I used to tell them that, oh, hello, my name is Olamide. You can call me Ola. I'm from Lagos, Nigeria. And then I tell you that I have 10 years experience doing XYZ, XYZ. When I focus on that, I focus on high level information, right? Information that I feel like would be catchy to you, that would also summarize a bit about my experience and what I've done, and slightly a bit more. So without saying too much, because I think it shouldn't go past 2 lines. So, but just always ensure that you tell them where you come from, which is always the very beginning as well. So if you say that you are from Ghana, tell them you're from Ghana, just mention that. So because it's also more memorable as well, so that they don't forget who you are or where you come from, even if they've never been. And you will also hear some of them say that, oh, nice, I've never met somebody from Nigeria. Like, they tend to, it's also a good way to bring out your personality when you're introducing yourself. But I focus on my name, the easiest way you can call me, where I come from, the experience that I have, but I don't go into too much information because I know those sessions are very short and you can't be the only one talking as well.
Okay, Ife.
Yeah, totally agree with you, Lance. So for me, my full name and my last name is quite a tongue twister, right? So it's always easier to say, oh, hi guys, my name is Ifelua, but you can just easily call me Ife. One thing that I also find that admissions or even alums or whoever you're speaking to likes is sort of like your energy, right? So I say something like, oh, I live in the heart of Lagos and everything happens in Lagos, right? Already they're like, oh, everything happens in your city. Interesting, right? You know, they're sort of like warming up to you. You know, the person even had a bad day and they hear that everything happens in Lagos. They're like, maybe Lagos can even make my day better, right? But just that sort of like, you know, so that the person is relaxed when chatting with you. I also mentioned the number of years of experience that I have. And for someone like me who has worked in the public sector and also in the private sector, I try to highlight those. Very quickly, I say, oh, I've worked in the Office of the Vice President where I did legal and strategy work. And then I moved to a tier 1 law firm in Lagos, where I worked with the finance and fintech teams, right? I'm sort of highlighting the points that I think would, you know, ring bells in your head. Okay, you hear strategy, you hear finance, you hear fintech, you know, so that when you're thinking, why is this lawyer even doing an MBA? You're sort of saying, oh, I can see why. I mean, depending when she tells me why, I can sort of like on my own try and piece all the information back together, you know, and then at the end, I'm probably just saying, oh, I decided to do an MBA because XYZ very quickly, and hoping to have a great chat with you. But yeah, that's high level stuff.
Thank you. So one thing I wanted to highlight is one thing Rima talked about, which was catching information, which is also something Ifelua alluded to. Now, the thing there is you need to be distinguishing yourself from the get-go, from the moment you're communicating with these people, because you want to be memorable and you want them to become your advocates. So essentially, I usually say that you are going to have to be recruiting your recruiter, right? So this is really the first thing. And so really the little things, your cadence, you know, and how you approach, how you say what you say, will really set the tone for the rest of the conversation. And my next question is going to be, by the way, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. I cannot see everyone on the screen, unfortunately, if you raise your hands anyway, but we can do this on the floor. So I wanted to ask the second question is, when did you decide that an MBA was something you wanted to do? And the reason why I'm asking this is because it is a journey. It is not an easy one. It is really exhaustive. It is a whole lot of research and a lot of work. But then it also comes back to how you decide to think about and you start to reflect on your career and how you communicate it. So when did you feel like, okay, I'm going to get my MBA now because of XYZ, because I wanted, like, what was that primary motive that triggered this journey?
Okay, I'm happy to take this one. Okay. So for me, like I said, I have a background as a lawyer. I think early on, I decided I didn't want to do a master's in law just because of different reasons. I felt, oh, if you're practicing as a lawyer already, a master's in law wasn't really going to be doing you so much good, except you're trying to land a job abroad and whatnot. And factually, doing an LLM, which is what it's called for short in the US, the stats are not particularly great for international students, right? So I was like, you know what, LLM is definitely off the table for me. I started considering a master's in law and finance, right? And funny thing, Oxford has like the best program in that. Again, I was thinking, oh, what sort of jobs will I be getting if I did an MLS, which is what it was called in short. And I also wasn't particularly thrilled because it was going to be core legal jobs and maybe a bit of dabble in finance. So I had to ask myself, and this was about when the pandemic hit, sort of like when I had to start working from home in March of 2020. I literally had to do quite a bit of soul searching and talking to people. And I mean, I'm Christian, so even praying as well, which was a very huge factor for me. And just saying, okay, what do I really want to do going forward in my career and whatnot? I realized that, in my previous job, I had done some strategy work. I had worked with consultants. In my current job, I was doing some exciting work in fintech, but more on the legal side. I said, you know what? I think I want to do more tech, but on the business side of things, because I'd be in a room with like young founders and I'd be so excited, the way they're talking, the way, those guys, their head is always hot, and I'm like, that's the side I want to be on, not reviewing their agreement. So please, it's only like a minor part of the entire transaction, right? And so March, April, I started thinking, what is the best degree to sort of bring my interests together, which is strategy and tech. And then again, like I said, I started talking to people and I realized that, it just might be the MBA, right? And then that whole journey started, which I'm sure we might get into at some point. But I would say officially the journey started for me March, April. Yeah. Of 2020.
Olamide, do you want to talk about your story as well?
Yeah, so I think mine is slightly different because I have a business background. I had done a postgrad in business and finance as well, but that was a long time ago. But I think majority of the places that I worked, and I would primarily say when I was working at Jumia, and I think maybe one or two of my former colleagues might be on this call, what you would know, okay, I would say my first mentor actually did his MBA. When I met him, he had just finished his MBA and he just moved to Nigeria. And he used to make so much rave about it. I used to be like, nah, you guys are not worth it. Like he used to make it seem like, oh my God, if you don't have an MBA, you don't. But that was like a long time ago. So I didn't really used to bother about it. I used to just be like, you know what? We don't need an MBA to succeed. Like that's what I used to tell myself. But then over the years, like a lot of my colleagues, a lot of people that I worked with, right, had just finished their MBAs. Most of them would move back to Nigeria in similar roles. So I used to be like, why do we need it if we're already doing the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then what you realize is that I think once you probably pass certain stages in your life, you start asking certain questions in your career, like what next, right? And then I realized that for certain roles, for you to be able to go higher, right, they would say, oh, you needed an MBA, was mostly people that had an MBA they were considering. So I was like, okay, so it's for us to be able to go from here to here. And then they'll bring other people in that had MBAs. Like, I was like, okay, so we have been here, we have been doing the work, and then somebody else is coming to climb back. Do you understand? It sort of makes you feel like you've been robbed of something.
Mm-hmm.
But I started knowing, like, I probably knew that I was going to do an MBA, but I just didn't know when. And I think 2 years ago, I started to decide that, okay, you know what? I don't want to be able to do an online MBA because that was also an option that I considered because I could not just accept the fact that I would take 2 years off to go to school full time. Like, it just didn't really make sense. Like, how do you stop your career right then? And, there's really no perfect time, right? You just have to look for that time. So 2 years ago, I started to look at it and I was like, okay, you know what? This can be possible. Like you can decide to do full time if you start planning well. So I feel like I didn't have one thing that made me like go on this journey. I've always just known that I was going to do an MBA, but I just didn't know when or what type of MBA, whether it was online MBA, whether it was executive. To be honest, I'm more shocked that I'm doing full-time MBA now.
Now, thank you for sharing your story. So what I would say is there's a reason why I asked this question. And it has to do with the fact that I was reading somewhere about the fact that someone said something that the MBA is not a requirement for anything. Unlike maybe when you do medicine, you go to medical school to become a doctor, or you do the go to law school or do a JD to become a lawyer. The MBA is absolutely not required to do anything. So because of its unique position, your motive for doing an MBA is something that admissions or students or alumni are listening for. They really want to know your why. Whether they make this clear or upfront or not, they are listening for it because they need to know that they want to invest all their time or their resources in you, and they need to know that you are doing this for the right reasons. Okay. I remember reading the story of a guy who thought he was the best thing since sliced bread. He was working in Bain. He had 770 GMAT. He applied to the top 7 schools, and he did not get one single admission. Like, the humility that entered his life was literally a turnaround. This guy really, really had to come down from his high horse to rethink everything. And many people don't understand that. Not necessarily, it is not the fact that you get 890 over 800 in GMAT or you have perfect grades is really not enough for you to get an MBA. This is something you need to understand because they want to know what it is about the MBA. And I want to recap 2 things that are crucial that both Ife and Raimat alluded to. Now, and what is an MBA really for? Now, MBAs are interpreters, and that's what I tell people. In organizations, as you're rising, there's more ambiguity in what to do. You see, at the lower levels, your job description is clear. You are supposed to do blah, 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 right? It's very structured. But as you're rising, there's more ambiguity. There's more pressure to make money. And so your responsibility is greater, right? Given when you have that at the back of your mind, what you now begin to need to understand is that you become the interpreter for the organization. When finance is talking, you can understand and process what they're saying. When marketing is speaking, you know what they're talking about. If it's operations management, you can have the conversation and you can carry a conversation and you can ask the right questions. So these are the things you need to begin to have at the back of your mind when you're trying to engage alumni or recruiters or students, because it means they know that you know what you're doing and that you've done your research. So I'm now going to go into the third thing, which is I'm now going to take it a step further. Now you know that you want to do an MBA. Now the next thing that really recruiters or anyone wants to know is what are your goals? That usually often comes up in conversation, right? Why, the why now has to link with, or your past now, link it with the future. So the question is for you, when you're asked why MBA, you have a solid story. Then what are the goals you told them or the things you told them that you wanted to achieve in the short term and long term? Raimat, you can go.
Okay, so awesome question, because I think this is always one of my favorite questions to actually answer.
Oh.
Before I actually talk about what I told them, I want people to also take this into consideration when thinking about your goals. As much as everybody might have dreams, right? You can see consultants doing everything. If your current background cannot really justify how you want to be able to transition into some of those dreams that you have, please don't sell it. Honestly, I wouldn't even bother. And because if you cannot sell it to an average person or your friend or your colleague at work, then it's not worth it. Like, nobody's going to buy it. Typically, your short-term goals should be tied back to what you already have background in. And that's part of the reasons why an MBA is a program that is for professionals. So you already have experience before you go into an MBA. And that experience means that you have some level of knowledge that you can share in the classroom, and you can also take further into your post-MBA goals, especially your short-term goals. Now, for me, my short-term goals was actually to stick to marketing, but not like typical marketing that I had done, but I wanted to work in big tech marketing. So I wanted to be able to transition into product marketing because I had done a lot of brand marketing, but in consumer electronics and retail. So I wanted to be able to transition fully into big tech space. And that's primarily what I did. But I also mentioned in particular companies that I wanted to work for. I already had retail experience, so I was able to talk about the fact that I wanted to be able to work with Amazon, Google, Facebook, Apple as well. I was coming from working with Infinix and Nokia as well, so it was easy for me to be able to link that. But I think it's just very important for you to be able to tie that back. In the long run as well, I also talked about how my long-term goals was actually tied back to coming back to Africa and Nigeria, to be specific, and West Africa, based on the experience that I already had in similar roles. So I was telling them that, guys, I want to become CMO for Africa or Chief Strategy Officer in these certain companies as well. So the idea is they believe that coming back means that you have value to add to the continent based on the experience that you already have from the US and also whatever continent you've also worked on post MBA as well. And also being an alumni adds value for them on the continent. So that's primarily what I said. I didn't have any transition that was slightly different from what I had already done. But what I also added in my long-term goals were certain things that I was also very passionate about, like certain projects that I felt like I had already started. So I started a community for women in marketing, certain initiatives that I felt like I could scale up into the future as well, were some of the things that I actually sold in my long-term goals. But I think everybody wants people that will be successful in the future. And selling success always works, right? It's not just about telling them on paper, but that's why you have fantastic experience that you can tell them that I've done this. So this is like an indicator that I can be successful at this in the future.
Fantastic, Ola. Fellow.
Okay. Like Olave, I mean, when Olave was talking, I was smiling because even after we had submitted, we were helping, some of our friends and colleagues through this crafting story bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we saw some things where, people are putting things that are sort of like, there's no connection, right? You're currently doing this. You say, so you're currently working, say what, like maybe with an NGO, right? You say you want to do tech, right? And you're not even doing any form of linking. And even when we say link it up, right? It doesn't even mean you have to have been doing heavy stuff in tech. It can be, while you were working in an NGO, one of the people you worked with were, some people with some tech company, and this is XYZ that you did, right? But it cannot just be that, you want to do something and you just want to do another thing, and let's not forget, and the honest truth is we're from Africa, right? While some people might have huge leeway with a lot of things that they can get away with.
I'm sorry, Faye, you got cut off.
Watertight.
Okay, you're back.
Oh, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that everything is watertight. And I think for me, speaking specifically to applying to a one-year MBA like Oxford, they want to see that that's one thing they would always tell you. We want to see that you know what you want to do. So no guesswork, no, maybe I want to could have. They want to see, because it's a one-year program, it goes by very quickly. So they want someone that, they can see that is bankable. And, when they're bringing out the employment report card, they can confidently say 98% of our students landed jobs 3 months after the MBA, right? But they can't say that about somebody that doesn't seem to know what they want to do, right? Which is why for an application like Oxford, there is, what do you want to do?
Sorry, get cut off again. Okay.
I keep getting cut off. Is it better? Okay.
Yeah, you're back.
So I was just saying that for an application like Oxford, they ask you, what do you want to do after the MBA? Then they ask you, what is your plan B, right? Because plan A will not always work. So what is your next best option, right? And I talked to Ladies Foundation so that when I'm explaining what I put out to them, it sort of like makes sense. So for me, I realized that, okay, in my first job in the VP's office, while I had worked in legal, a lot of the work I did was working with consultants. So consultants from the World Bank, consultants from McKinsey, from PwC. So while I was not working as a consultant, I was working with consultants, right? I remember one of the things I even told them was, because I liked the way consultants were, the way they were thinking and the kind of way they came up with solutions very quickly. One of the things I did was, ask them that, hi guys, how come you guys are able to think like this? And I felt like I wasn't thinking like that. And many of them told me, one of the major instruments of that was getting an MBA at some point in their lives, right? So you see that they're already saying, okay, this girl, she was sort of like immersed in that culture somehow, and the seed had been planted, right? So I moved from that to saying, now I work with, up until a couple of months ago, I was working with businesses in the fintech space, right? And the project I was working on in the vice president's office, it was to ease the doing business in Nigeria. So I said I moved from trying to improve Nigeria's business climate, working with consultants, to now working with people who are actually in this business environment. But I realized that there's still some difficulty, right? And this is getting an MBA is sort of like my way of exposing myself to be able to, try and fix those difficulties by, interacting with people who probably done it before and things like that, right? So on paper, I was actually pitching to them that I wanted to move into.
It got cut off a little bit again. Could you repeat the last thing you said?
So I was saying that on paper, I had said short-term goal is I want to move into consulting, right? Again, I sort of like had earlier made a case for it, which is I had done quite a bit of work with consultants, and also moving later to, now working with businesses, and saw that all the work I was doing in VP's office maybe a little more needed to be done, but I had sort of like laid the foundation, right? So I was saying I wanted to move into consulting, do more work in the public sector space, to see how other countries were actually doing stuff in their business environment, right? Long term, I was saying, again, I was applying to Oxford that takes about 12% of the Oxford class is African. They believe that they want to equip Africans to be able to go back home at some point to improve the continent. So long term, I was saying that I want to come back home, right, to improve Nigeria's business environment, but obviously at a much more higher level where I can actually make policies that can influence, right? Plan B, remember I had said I was working in a law firm where I had done finance and fintech. So my plan B was that I wanted to do business development in fintech. So in fintech, in the law firm, I was doing law, right? But plan B, I was saying, oh, I had experienced the law side and I wanted to switch to more of like a business role, but within the fintech space. So, I guess anyone reading it sort of like saw the flow and it sort of like made sense. So that was how I was able to, to craft that bit out.
Thank you so much, Ifeoluwa and Rahman. You know what? Both of you said a lot, and I want to just try and recap it in maybe a word or two or a sentence or two. Because we're talking about networking, remember, and crafting your story. Those two things are interlinked. And many times when people talk about, oh, how am I going to get the story? They don't understand the elements or the blocks to which to build a story. So this is why we're taking kind of like this structured and deliberate approach, right? And the main thing here is this. Right after the financial crisis changed MBA education. Before the financial crisis, it was a little less stressful in terms of your story or what have you. But the financial crisis now created stress. Because of the stress it created, they needed you to now, some of the adjustments that was made by admissions was you have to come up with a minimum viable path. If you want to use or adapt technology language, that at all, as we say where we come from, if it's bad, what is it that you can do? So this is how you need to be thinking about your goals. And then please, it is a business school. When we tell people goals, then some people now think we are talking about some flimsy things that they want, that really they've been thinking maybe they can do something ridiculous. No, I don't know, like something just grandiose or something. It has to be something grounded and something that, see how Ife was able to link our previous work experience to consulting and suggesting that consulting was a pathway for her. Not everybody likes consulting work. I just have to make that clear. So, and then see how Olamide had a structured thought process, like, okay, I've done this. Based on this, these are the possibilities for me. And the last thing I'll say is that there are three things that people change with their MBA. They change location, they change industry, and they change function. Usually, it's easier to change one of those three things. It's not very easy to change all three. So you can think about it in those terms that, okay, sometimes for certain schools, I just said, look, I want to be international. I want to play, depending on the branding of the school, but I'm not talking about myself. But I use the location tactic to build my story. Sometimes I use the industry tactic. Sometimes I looked at function as a way to, as a lever to construct my goals and tell my story. So my next question for our panelists is, how did you determine which schools were a good fit for your story? I mean, if you had already started talking about this when she talked about Oxford and looking to contribute to Africa, which is true, and then using that as a basis in our long-term goals. So now, based on how you've been thinking about your goals and all of that, how do you now say, okay, these are the schools or the set of schools I want to apply to? Raimat, you can start.
I think this one is, I would refer back. Okay, so to answer this, I would actually refer back to, I think the session we had with Samuel and Bimpe, I think that was 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And I would beg Franklin to help us share a link to the YouTube page for that session as well, because I feel like people have to refer back to it.
Okay.
Now, I took into consideration a lot of things. I, for one, I would say that by location first, I had studied in the UK. And by choice, it was always going to be like my first. But I was like, okay, this is business school, right? Everybody talks about the US. So I felt like a lot of the things that I wanted to achieve and also learn were primarily skewed towards the US. So by location, it was that. But in terms of school, I did massive research. And I would say thanks to COVID, right? I probably contacted all the schools on that top 100. I was sleeping and waking up to them. And I'm saying this because it's very easy to just say, oh, no. Like before, I always said that, yes, I was like Stanford. I remember I think 2 or 3 years ago, I was actually putting together an application for Stanford until they stopped the African scholarship. Then I stopped. I just moved away because I was looking for a scholarship. But then I had these random choices by location, different circumstances and stuff. But I feel like my final list really came together from all the research that I did during COVID. So I reached out to as many alumni as possible. Admissions, I joined you don't want to know how many events, but I was sleeping and waking up to rankings. I knew every single thing you can imagine about most of the schools. But one thing I would say that I picked out was because I already had a lot of experience and I was looking at career progression, right? I looked at schools where a lot of the students were actually going into certain industries that I was interested in. So like, I would say University of Seattle, Washington was actually like my number one because I was like, yeah.
Very close to 10. That makes sense.
Yes. And that was like Amazon, that was Microsoft.
Even Microsoft, Dell, yeah.
Then I also looked at functions as well. As somebody that was looking to do marketing, technology management, a bit of entrepreneurship and a bit of strategy, I started looking at programs that actually were very heavy on that. I think the very obvious one for somebody going into marketing was always Kellogg. And everybody was like, yes, Kellogg has to be at the top of your list. So yes, you say Kellogg. And then so I selected schools based on that. But then I now further came down to start looking at scholarships, right? Because I was like, if you get into these schools, it's fantastic. But which of these schools really has like good scholarship and funding to actually give international students or students in general? And I further broke that down to looking at women as well, looking at, okay, so how competitive would I be as an African woman in this program? Because you have a lot of years of experience, right? If some of them, their average class size probably had like 7 years experience, I had more. How many of these programs, some of them actually did tell me that I shouldn't bother, I should consider the executive MBA. So I had all of those things to take into consideration. But I would say I now came down to culture as well, like based on all the interactions that I had with alumni, current students, admission, you could really tell where you would fit as a person. And I knew certain places that I did not want to go into. Like I knew I did not want to be in a class with 800 people, 1,000 people. Nah, I wasn't bothered about that. Like I knew what worked for me. And I think maybe it was also a bit around my educational background as well. I knew that I did not want to go to some certain places. I knew the cost. I took into consideration a lot of things. And I would say the average person shouldn't do as much work as I did because it was not necessary. But for me, I'm an information junkie. So I took into consideration a lot of things, did a lot of it. And I would say I started attending some of those conferences very early as well.
Mm.
I attended in the previous year before our admission cycle as well. So I started talking to the admissions guys. I knew so much about the schools that when it was time, I knew that, yes, I was ready.
Mm.
But I only had that opportunity because of COVID.
Mm.
That's primarily it. And everything else, I was just able to move around. But I would say that research really came in very handy in selecting the schools that I wanted to go. But funding was at the very, very top. Like at the very, very top. Like even if I really liked you and I saw that you didn't have scholarship, like I debunked Stanford like a long time ago. In fact, I didn't even know so much about Stanford then. But when I did more research, I was like, no, this one is not for me. Like just accept certain things. And I think the beauty about the MBA that Samuel always says is that the global MBA program in most countries, right, you would definitely land in the same places, right? So it doesn't have to be a top 10 or an M7 or a top 20 or top 25, right? Because when you do your research, beyond what the media tells you, when you do your research, you would see that everybody, like primarily everybody, lands in the same place. And I think it's also something that's also unique about the economy as well, because people tell you that in the US, you don't need an MBA to get a good job. And that's true. But it depends on what type of job you're looking for. It depends on where you are coming from and what you're trying to attain. So I think if you look at your own circumstance, like some people say that they just want to get a job. If you just want to get a job, then like you don't need to be able to go to Harvard to be able to get a job that you're looking for. Even consulting as well, like you see. And because education in North America is such a big deal, like it's a money-making venture. You can imagine people going to school and not getting jobs. That doesn't even sound right. Fine, the connections might not be there. It might not be easy, but as international students, and I say a lot of us say this, right? As an international student, no matter what school you go into, it's the same hustle. The same hustle, everybody is hustling. It just depends on how much hustle you can do early and like your networking skills, basically.
Thank you, man. That was exhaustive. I don't know if I felt I want to drop a thing, but I almost feel like he has attacked the whole thing from top to bottom. But I'll give you the opportunity to say something.
Yeah, I mean, I like Lance's response because, yeah, like I said, we were on this journey together. So a lot of her answers and mine are, very aligned. But very quickly, and again, I thought to ask this just because I'm going to England, right, for my MBA. For me, one of the big deals was the diversity of the programs in Europe, right? And which is why personally, I just didn't even apply to any school in the US. I'm very big on the network that I want to have, not just now, but how I see the future is going to look like, right? Your MBA classmates are not just classmates, they are friends for life, right? Many of whom can become anything you can imagine in 10 years or 20 years, right? The US programs are very US centric, and I mean, more than half of the classes are US candidates. I personally didn't want that. My class at Oxford were from over 70 countries. Of 320 people. In my mind, that is my access to 70 countries, like easily. If I want to go and do anything in Lithuania, in Kazakhstan, I don't know what's going to take me there, but it's that easy, right? I literally don't need to be racking my head. And again, like I said, it's not just now or in 5 years, it's in 15, 20 years. That network is a big deal for me. And you can imagine it also spills into, the alumni network and all of that stuff, right? Also helps that a school like Oxford, you get access to not just your class, but the entire institution, which is like over 900 years old. It is so rich in culture, and that was big for me. So which was a very big deal for me, the diversity of the European programs. Another thing as well that I also took in consideration, like Olamide mentioned, is the funding. I was also very big on programs that were big on admitting Africans and women. And Oxford does an amazing deal in doing that. The class, 12-13% are Africans, 44% as of today are women. I don't see any other school doing that, right? Like, it just means to me that they want me and they want my kind. right? And they proved that to me from the very beginning. And so it was a major, drawing for me towards Oxford. Across Oxford has an alternative. Well, they say it's an optional essay, but quick tip: when they say optional, nothing is optional to you. Please write everything, do everything, don't leave anything on the table, right? So they have this optional essay where it's 250 words, and they say to you, tell us anything that you haven't told us in your entire application, right? And because there were some targeted women's scholarships at Oxford, I went there. I was telling them about all the things I've done for women, all the things I will continue to do for women. I will die for women. But I mean, like real stories, but just bringing out that side of me that was, Anna is laughing, but just bringing out that side of me that was really drawn to supporting women and empowering women. And I think that honestly had a major role to play because the scholarship also had a separate application. But when they did look through my entire application, they could see that, beyond, carving out some women's stories in the scholarship application, the entire application also still showed the kind of things she's done with women. My CV also had some bits of that. So I think essentially what I'm saying is everything about this process is deliberate. You should not leave anything to chance. Nothing is, maybe I should just throw this in there. You can't just throw anything in. Like it's not a game, right? It's something that you have to think about, be deliberate about, and you honestly, I assure you, you see results from doing that.
I don't know. This is as being, even me that I'm in school already, it's as if I should go and be applying again.
Please, that process is too rigorous.
Nobody should go through that process.
No, please.
No. Look, one thing you see, there are things you guys have said that I just want to just put small light on because it's not so visible. But as you're saying those things, it's beginning to literally make me see things I didn't see before. Now, before I went to Hopkins, there were two schools I knew that I had a really strong chance of getting into. One was INSEAD and the other was Cornell. And the reason was because I met two INSEAD recruiters. I remember that, so before COVID, I think in 2017, there was this conference. So they will ask you in this particular conference, what schools you want to interview with and why. So I said, I want the French schools. And then they said, why? I said, because they are ahead in technology innovation. Okay, no story. Immediately, they just assigned me to the French school. So I sat in front of the Indian woman, INSEAD woman, I'll never forget. She just looked at me and said, why do you want to go to INSEAD? I said, because INSEAD professors are the best in application of artificial intelligence to fintech. The specificity blew, come and see excitement on her face. Like she lit up. You do understand? It was so, she's like, yes, you're right. The excitement, me, I was just looking, I got you, right? She gave me a card. She said, look, she said that she would do she would help me look at my essays before I submit it to, that I should make sure I email her my essays first before they go in. And I must make sure that I get 700. So that was the first connection I made with INSEAD. The second one was there was an INSEAD meet in Athens. And I went there. So if you don't know, I did a master's in Athens in Greece. And I met all these INSEAD people. I impressed them again. They just said, Ola, when you are ready to go to INSEAD, just tell us. In short, you have entered. Just forget, The only reason why I didn't go to INSEAD was money. No money, and this is the next thing I was going to go to. Money. Hopkins gave me a full scholarship, right? So that was more important. So what am I saying? If I represented herself as part, like they can see if in the class, and this is really where you need to get to, that can they envision you as part of that community? This is what you are trying to achieve. Because once you can convince them, and this is essentially what fit means, right? Once they can see you as a person that will thrive in their community, there is nothing they will not do to the best of their capacity to get you into that class. I tell people that my Hopkins scholarship was my recruiter. I told him I don't have money. If I don't have money, I'm not going to school. He said, I shouldn't worry. That's what I literally sent him to the admissions committee to get my scholarship. I didn't do any. He was telling me that, that to avoid me going to another school, that he will call me before the letter or whatever comes out, just so that he can lock me down so that I don't go elsewhere. So I always tell people that you are meeting with a recruiter. What is the recruiter's motive? Think about it. You are a recruiter. Why? So you're on the other side. Once you begin to understand the recruiter's motives, you can better position yourself, and the things that you say will, get you into that community. Now we're going to switch my first question here. We're going to jump it. You guys have already answered it. So we're going to kind of the real core networking part. So I kind of deliberately, they know this already, split it into two parts, which is the first part. I try to focus on the foundation of how you craft your story, because in many ways, it is the more difficult thing. So now it's more like the networking strategy. I mean, now networking is something, I mean, I was telling Ramat that I did an interview yesterday with a Harvard VC guy. I'd already added him on LinkedIn. In short, I made him talk for 2 hours. I made him my friend, like all on purpose. Now, the purpose for which he was interviewing me might not, come out. But I can in short, it's something I've been doing. Once I'm interviewed by someone and I notice or they hint that they like me, I either get their number, I even have his number, or I get their LinkedIn. And then many times I was trying to they will introduce you freely. And once somebody sees that you come as a referral, they will take you seriously. Like these Americans, they take these things really, really seriously. So your job by telling your story right and networking is to get an admissions officer to go in the room when they're making decisions to say, this person must enter our program. Whatever you people, no matter how many people you people are bringing here, they must enter. So this is really your goal. Now, we're going to the networking side, like I said. And, so someone's saying networking tips for introverts. Okay, interesting. That is an interesting dimension we'll look at. Okay, so now my first question is, how did you approach the networking process? So if you were speaking to students or alumni or recruiters, what were the basic, how did you go about it just in general, or did you have a specific formula that you applied to the whole process? If John will go first.
Okay. I mean, I like the networking just because it's something that I enjoy, and I really like the roots question, which is for people who aren't comfortable with this, please, what's the way forward? I'm hoping I can touch on that as well. But on how I approach this, and probably the tens of people that I've spoken to about the MBA journey, one of the first things I always say is, please, 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 speak to anyone and everyone that will speak to you, please. I hear some people say, I've been reaching out to the Nigerians in this school. How many Nigerians are in this school? Let's be honest, right? Yeah. Then how even the Africans gone, how many are they in the schools that are applying to? And I like to be very honest with people. By the time you see the numbers, right, and say you have 50 of you from Nigeria who want to apply to a certain school, the Nigerians and the Africans in that school probably cannot even reach all of you.
Yeah.
One ratio one. So you've already it's not gonna work, right? So for me, you must speak to anyone and everyone who is able to talk to you. And I think when you have that mindset, and I will give very factual examples. I also applied to London Business School. I remember I reached out to this guy from Brazil. I didn't know the guy from anywhere. I just saw I don't know about LinkedIn, right? When it sees that you're adding people from a certain space, the algorithm, everything, it just starts popping people from that spot, right? So I added the guy on LinkedIn, introduced myself, or was wondering if he would be able to have a quick chat with me on my application. You know what that guy said to me? He said, I'm available to have a chat with you now. They're not available tomorrow. They are happy to do it right now. So if you're waiting for the Nigerians and the Africans, you have already, first of all, the Africans and Nigerians were always busy. Nobody's busier than us, and the busy is valid, right? But hey, the guy was ready to have a chat with me, literally in 30 minutes. And for me, I was so grateful for that, right? So I think about it like that. Be open to speaking to anybody. I spoke to people from Vietnam, from anywhere, just name the country. I probably spoke to someone from there, but first things that I would say, also, it's even something as little as, when you're adding someone on LinkedIn, right? put a note. People actually turn down LinkedIn. They ignore LinkedIn connection requests. So why should they answer you? And while it might be, oh my God, am I going to start typing a note? See, me, I like my easy life, right? Have a note written down somewhere on your phone. Just copy and paste it in the LinkedIn notes section. So if I want to add Olamide, for example, on LinkedIn, I'm going to where I've reserved my, set of notes, describe myself, 2 lines, copying it, just change it. Don't go and write Dear Ifeoluwa to Olamide. Please, it's those little things. Don't go and put yourself in time, So just change that portion that has the person's name and hit send. You're saying who you are. You're talking about the things you've done very briefly, probably where you work and what you do at your workplace. I'd like to have a quick chat with you. I'm currently on the application process. I had a few questions. Also, when people are very busy, so don't go blanket on I'm applying. I want to talk to you. Why? Are you the first to apply? Are you the first to really apply? But they want to see that this person actually is worth their time. Well, I had a few quick questions, and then again, I'm going to be factual. Someone had some questions for me, and the person had 5 questions, and I'm telling you, one question was like 5 in one. And this person typed everything out. I'm like, oh wow. I was the one that said, you know what, let's jump on the call, right? So when you know that your questions, they are plenty, right? You want to also sort of like manage the person's expectation and say, oh, I have quite a bit of, a few questions about XYZ. I was wondering if, at your earliest convenience, you'd be able to chat with me. I promise not to take too much of your time. Already they can see that you're a respectful person. You're not the kind of person that's just going to waste their time. So I think also just bring emotional intelligence into it. That's one thing a lot of people don't do. You must bring emotional intelligence into networking as well, because you're not networking with AI or with Alexa or with Siri, right? You're networking with a human being like yourself. And so the person might have had a bad day. So why are they going to shove their bad day aside to speak with you, right? So it's just little things that you do, that make people open to you. I think, let me see if there's any last point I want to mention. But pending then, Olamide, if you have something you want to share.
Ife was spot on.
Alright.
And because, to be honest, she has said everything all. But I think a few things that I just wanted to add. The part of bringing emotional intelligence is very, very important. And I think a lot of people don't think about that. Maybe because a lot of our experiences might not have anything to do with that. But I think it's something that people can start building on. I would say my networking approach, similar to Ife as well. I love meeting people. I love meeting people. I think for me, I find it very exciting to learn about people, not just talk about myself. And I think that's one aspect of networking when you are going into an MBA, you need to be comfortable with. Because when you're in a class with as many people as possible, some schools are like 1,000, right? Just think about it. It's not only going to be about you. So how do you give people an opportunity to be able to talk about themselves and learn from them? So I would say, yes, I love hearing from people. I love that. My approach in terms of networking was very similar to Ife. Apart from networking with schools, which I did by joining a lot of their sessions, a lot of their webinars. I'd spent COVID joining webinars, forums online, everything that I could find, I did. But apart from that as well, I had my introduction written that was standard. I think one thing that also helped as well, before you start reaching out to people on LinkedIn, remember that your profile on LinkedIn is as good as you as a person. Now, the reason why I said that is because if you're going to reach out to somebody in a school that you're considering and you haven't even looked at or spent time to look at your LinkedIn profile to make it even look better, right? Up to standard, nobody's going to accept your request, even if you include the notes. Let's be realistic, right? Because they feel like you must have done some level of work to be able to show recognition for you to even gain their attention. So I think it's also very important as well, because people want to know, okay, so there's a personality, there's somebody, you've achieved something, right? So your LinkedIn should show that. So easy things like having a professional picture, right? Not having a picture where you're wearing trad or something, having basic introduction, have your work history, your education, like just have a good profile. Like it doesn't have to be excellent, just have a good profile, because you are approaching somebody virtually. and you want the person to be able to respond to you.
Mm.
So I would say that I've always had, work on work. I think I've always kept my LinkedIn profile to be very, very top notch, no matter where it is that I worked. So before MBA, I always had that. So I didn't have any issues with that. So reaching out to people on LinkedIn was very helpful for me. Just included in like in notes, like Ife said, which is similar to what I already talked about in the beginning of this session, how I did my introductions. I also had a document, like an Excel sheet, because I'm very structured like that. So I had an Excel sheet with all the schools that I was considering. And I had like a tab for, have I reached out to admissions? When did I speak to them? What's person's name? Also alumni, current students as well. I had like different tabs for different schools as well. And I always had like a notepad, because my notepad was like the best thing for me. So I always had like I always jotted down sessions that I had with these people, picked out certain things, because you want to remember people's names, right? Because you want them to remember you, like what Ola was talking about in his own experience. So I always use different sessions to talk about different people. So for example, if I went into a session or I mentioned, sometimes admissions will tell you that, oh, I think there's an African that went to our school, please search for this person on LinkedIn. Yes, it means that you already got on one person's page. So when you go on LinkedIn and you're doing your introduction, just mention it that, oh yes, you've already been chatting with XYZ person in admissions and they told you to reach out to them. That even gives them more reason to be able to accept and jump on a call with you. Like those people are very happy to know that their admissions is even remembering them for somebody else. So I did a lot of that. I did a lot of networking in terms of, and then I also tapped into my current network as well. I had friends that went to different MBA programs, not limited to the schools that I wanted to go. So I just spoke to them, tried to understand, okay, fine, if they had anyone else in their network as well that went to some of the schools that I was recommending. Some of them were even very kind to say that, you know what, oh, I think you might be good for this program. Consider this program as well, and then put you in touch with somebody that they know, or maybe an additional person that they interacted with at some point in time as well. But I felt like if I didn't network, I'll probably not be here today in terms of the decisions that I made, because I spent so much time and I made sure every single person that I spoke to knew my name or remembered me, especially admissions, because I followed them everywhere, like wherever it was a case of stalking, right? But I made my case very clear. I made sure that, okay, you know what, you know me, like beyond this, right? Wherever you go, I'm there. I'm just showing appearance. I'm showing up like for myself and say that, guys, like, this is me. I'm really, really interested. It's almost like when you're trying to date somebody and you call them, you go and check on them, you understand, you travel, you do different things. But I felt like it was a part of building a relationship, because networking for me wasn't just like a one-off. Like, because when it feels like a one-off, like you just want something from them, then you go. No, there's a journey. And even if you don't end up going to those schools, I think some of those relationships you can actually help others build on their behalf, right? And you can recommend somebody else as well. Like if you don't think it's a good fit for you, but if you don't build a relationship with some of these programs or current students, admissions team, alumni, I don't feel like you would truly understand what it is you want to achieve in that program or understand their culture. Because some admissions teams are great, some are not. Like some of them, in fact, some schools will tell you, some schools will tell you they're not really bothered about you as a person. Just show up, people are going to apply anyways. So what else? Like, and the only way to be able to get those information will probably be from alumni or current students. Even some alumni will tell you that if you want to go, just go, but it's not going to be about some of the things that you are looking for as well. So you want that level of transparency, but if you don't build relationships, I don't think you will have it.
Please, round of applause.
Well, that's sorry, real quick one, right? Ruth had a question, and I thought it was a good time to just touch on it real quick.
That was the introvert question. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I'm sure you can tell that. I mean, maybe Olamide and I are more extroverted than introverted. But I thought maybe we had a bit of stuff to just share in terms of, networking as an introvert. And I think how I want to address that is, if you put it on a scale, right? The reaching out to people and the connecting with people and the benefits that come with it far outweigh not doing that, right? And I'll be honest with you and say, I do have friends who did this process by themselves, right? And didn't reach out to anybody, stayed in their room, did their GRE, applied all by themselves. Yes, they got in, but many of them didn't get a lot of added benefits. Many of them were still trying to, they didn't even know how to go about convincing schools to give them money for scholarships, you know. But I can tell you for free, like top of my head, the benefits of connecting with people. It was connecting with the admissions that I got a waiver to apply to Oxford, so I didn't have to pay £150. It was connecting with current students and alumni and admissions that I realized that Oxford places value on student recommendations. So I had like 4 of those recommendations. In addition to the 2 that you typically would require to apply, right? It was connecting with people that even the admissions team themselves connected me with Africans who had gotten the scholarship that I was looking to get, right? So I think when you put it on a scale, you want to make sure that, and again, you don't have to speak to 20 people because it's just not your thing. You're like, why am I going to be in the face of 20 people? And that's fine, right? But I would say reach out to 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 1 person from admissions, right? Again, like we said, have a clean LinkedIn profile, not a selfie, have a profile picture, have a headline, drop a note, and connect with like 3, 4 people from a school that you're looking to apply to. I'm telling you that the benefit of doing that as opposed to not doing it far outweighs, anything. So I hope that sort of helps.
Thank you, Ifeoluwa. So I have something to say about this. Not everyone is going to respond to you, right? It's not personal. That's 1. 2, it helps if you have a hook, what I call a hook. Something like, hi, my name is Ola. I'm interested in Cornell because they have a strong digital technology program. I like to learn. Just once you demonstrate interest in a school in a definite way, people will feel like you've done your homework, right? So that honestly helps. But please, when I started this journey at Hopkins Autonomous Network, I used to feel very shy. I would maybe wait 3 weeks. Hey, am I not disturbing this person like this? I'll be having all these thoughts in my mind. I've changed, so I network like no man's business, please, because your networking journey is just starting. Business school is networking to make the most. See, you are in business school to do one thing and one thing to maximize your recruiting chances. So therefore, you need to make and now that we're in a virtual environment, I think it should be a bit better for introverts where you don't necessarily, and the Zoom thing has done one thing. It has kind of leveled the ground for everyone. So I encourage you to take advantage of LinkedIn, Zoom, etc., so that you can get the most, like if I said, there are things you won't know if you don't go out there. They won't tell you. I remember, I'm going to say this last. In Athens, I met someone from Kellogg. And she was telling me, I said, in Kellogg, I said, nobody knows all these things you are saying. We don't know. They should please tell your people to help us put it on their websites, because I didn't know, with all this research I've done, I had no idea about all these things you're saying. So it is really important that you network and connect with people. My next question has to do with, okay, like you really, really kind of crept into my next questions. So I guess I'm going to ask a different question than what I have here. What? Can you hear me?
Yes. No, wait. I think Ola disappeared.
Yeah, I think he dropped off, actually. I can't see him on my screen.
I think we can answer.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we speak to some of the questions? Let me see. I'm trying to just scroll up.
I think there's a question somebody asked earlier around how do you craft your story? I think somebody asked that question earlier. That was the best way to structure your story to ensure that you have a flow. So I have, okay, somebody told me this. I was actually a current student last year. I think when I was about to interview, and I used it throughout, and I always like to share it. Now, the person told me something around building your story that really has to do with you as a person. Now, the first part of crafting your story that I would recommend starts with who you are. Like, who are you? I think you need to decide who you are. Like, some people don't even know who they are. Like, how do you introduce yourself, for example? So who you are really starts with, what is your background? Like, where do you come from? So even if you're from Lagos, what exactly is your story that has to do with that? Do you understand? Now, it can be from, maybe you are from an entrepreneurial family, you're from a single parent family, you are whatever it is, like, because people connect better with you when they know a bit more about you, not just about where you work, right? It is, and there's always that emotional connection, trust me. That's why if you read a lot of the stories around people that actually graduated from their MBA recently, right? A lot of them talked about their personal life, which is part of the reasons why they were on their journey. The guy that talked about the fact that he watched his mom and his dad get killed or something like that. There's always a personal touch. And I think schools, especially like M7 schools, really focus on that. I know Stanford actually has an essay around why or whatever it matters or something like that. That's a bit about personal about you as well. And they just want to know
what matters most to you, I think.
Yeah, that one. So I always start with, who are you as a person? Like, and that has to do with your background, your personal life. So try to bring that into context, let the person get to know you. Then you go into the flow of what you've done professionally, right? So beyond that your personal life, what have you done in your professional life? So that's where you now start highlighting the experience that you have, and what you are passionate about. And I think we also leave out our leadership experience in this, which is very, very important as well when telling your story, because Ife spoke a lot around the things that she had done for women that had to do with her personal leadership experience as well. So that was volunteering. I focused on both. I focused on my leadership. I also focused on things that I was very passionate about, because I was able to build projects based on my passion outside of work as well. Over the past couple of years. So they also want to know that there's somebody behind you. Like, so even if you have a lot of experience, right? You have somebody that can drive initiatives, you're a leader. Everybody wants a leader in their program. Trust me. They don't just want, yes, everybody is a follower, but everybody wants to be, like, they want to know that this person can definitely lead in the future. We can see this person going places. We can see this person driving certain initiatives in our community. Do you understand? And then it's also good to know that if you have a unique selling point, right, just key into it, because this is where schools start looking at where culture fit comes into it. Some of the community activities that they are very passionate about, how does it align with this person's own? So this is where you are this is where your passion really comes into play. So when you finish with that as well, that's when you now start talking about why you want an MBA. Now, why you want an MBA is very important, because it bridges the gap between what your experience, like where you've come from, the learnings you've drawn from your background, your experience, how you bring forward your experience and everything that you've achieved over the past couple of years, into what your next step is. And that's where you can answer why you want an MBA. So typically people will talk about, they want global experience, they want to be able to transition, but then you are answering key questions with that as well. So what are you, when you're saying you want an MBA, so what exactly is it an MBA that an MBA would do for you? And you would be able to talk about a bit more, maybe there are certain leadership capabilities you want to be able to build from an MBA. That is where you can address it, right? And then from there, you will now be able to talk about your short-term and long-term goals, which we already highlighted, because if you've already told them why you want an MBA, then you should be able to tell them what you would do with an MBA. And that's where your short-term and long-term goals comes into play. But I would typically follow that flow. I know that every personal statement follows the same flow as well, but it depends on how you look at it. But when you don't want to start with, I've seen some questions. And the thing is, when you see some essay prompts, for example, where they are asking you, what are your short-term and long-term goals? I see that a lot of people actually just go straight to answer what their short-term and long-term goals are, but that's not what they're asking you actually. They're asking you, that question is basically your personal statement, your story. So start with what you, like who you are, like what your background, what you've done professionally, right? Why you want an MBA before you now deep dive into your short-term and long-term goals. There's always a flow. Because, you know, in Nigeria or in most African countries, like when they ask us questions, we just jump to the answer directly because nobody wants to beat around the bush, right? But these guys, they like a bit of toasting. Like they like you to be able to give them more context. And there has to be a story to it. So you can't just answer the questions directly. You have to be able to give them more because they don't, like, if you just tell them your short-term and long-term goals, how do they know who you are? Like, how do they know you can even achieve it? So I think, but that's what I would always recommend. If anyone else has any other tips around that, please feel free.
Yeah, thank you. I think I got thrown out of Zoom. Sorry, I'm back. Yeah. Yes, I just.
Well, I think you had a bit more. Okay, you had some questions for us as well.
No. I don't. I think now we're gonna freestyle. I mean, we've been doing this for an hour and a half already. So, I mean, you pretty much cut into most of the questions anyway. So, yeah. So we can just do like a small question and answer. I kind of just tie in everything, basically. But I wanted to just add something to what Olamide said. It's really, see, think like a lawyer, basically. It's like you're making a case. And this is really how it is. You're making this case to somebody as to why they need to make you a part of their community. And it means that if you are interested in my community, one, you've looked at my community, then you can tell me things about my community that kind of separate it or distinguish it. So for instance, I usually use this example. It's like football. We see footballers, they want to go to the schools that to play in the clubs that their heroes have played in. So when you see people that they say, oh, they want to play in Man U or want to play in Real Madrid, it's usually because when they were kids, their heroes were playing in Man U and were playing in Madrid. So they want to now play there. It's something like that. But here's another thing, which is what Olamide was alluding to about leadership. Because leadership can be such an abstract word. When I say leadership, the light just goes off. I remember telling admissions people in my school that be careful when you're talking to African students about leadership because they'll be telling you position. Because when we hear leadership, I was the secretary of my fellowship. That's what leadership means to Africans. So, she said, really? I said, yes. She said, oh my, wow. Like, she was like, okay, that she had no idea that she's going to keep that in mind next time. Like, because they will start wondering what's going on. Like, we're telling you to talk about your leadership. Why are you telling me that you are the president of, your class captain? And you do you understand? Then you're now offbeat. When you are saying you are a leader, it's what Olamide said. I led, I drove, I initiated. So it plays out in many ways. I volunteered. I made something happen. When Ife is talking about women, community, she's demonstrating leader. That's everything Ife was talking about, working with women, for women, dying for women. That is exactly what translates to leadership in the mind of Americans. It's not, I was the vice president of my student fellowship in UNILAG. They don't care. It's fine, but it's really, what did you do? How did it change? What impact did you make? And this is the thing that you need to have at the back of your mind when you're thinking about leadership and translating what they are trying to say. Another thing I tell people, what is not in America does not exist. Now, this one, you have to be really careful. When you are translating information to them, and you need to be able to say it in a way that makes sense. I'll give you an example. One of my friends got into a school in the US. So the admissions person was not telling him that, can you imagine? That's how one person applied from your school. He said that they had strike for 2 years. Does he think that I'm stupid? That how can there be strike for 2 years? The guy looked at him and said, this is Africa, please. It's not America. yes, schools really have gone on strike for, even though it's in America, it is such a wild idea. Do you understand? That actually happened. So the woman was like, so he was telling the truth. Hey, do you understand? So I will finish by saying this. So many times when I want to communicate something that I feel like I try and look for an American reference point. Do you understand? And I'll say this might be difficult for Americans. I can't remember who I was writing an email to once, and I had to start with that language, that it might be difficult for you to appreciate this. But in Nigeria, this happens. Then I can add evidence, I can add a link that, see, in case you think I'm making this up, when you click, so that you can have context, so that there's no communication issue. So I don't know if you have questions.
I just want to add something real quick.
Go.
While on this subject of like volunteering and displaying leadership, I think one thing you should also realize is no experience is useless.
Yes.
No experience is so irrelevant that it cannot be spun to make sense, right? In the end, we're talking about how you sell it. And again, I'll bring it home, right? I was speaking to someone recently and she said to me, she's just been thinking volunteering. One of the major things she's done is her mom has a school where they help disabled kids, right? And she, and she does some work there occasionally. I said, girl, please. Maybe we don't, I mean, you can say it's your mom's school, you don't need to say that, but helping disabled kids, are you joking? Like, that's something that should go in, I remember there was someone else. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can. Definitely.
I remember at the session that Daniel and I had, right? Daniel was saying one of his classmates who is going to Harvard Business School, one of his volunteering experience that he was able to carve out was that he took care of his sick dad for X amount of months.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was taking time off, work to dedicate time to that. Like, what did that teach you about working with, older people, elderly people? Help, like,
and it is just, nothing is irrelevant. Nothing is, nothing should be thrown out the door.
Together, as far back as you can remember, dump everything in, right? You can now sort of like do a process of elimination that, okay, maybe this is too remote, maybe this, I'm not particularly sure I can, elaborate or, make a case for this as much as I would have loved to, but don't discount it as anything. I think so many things that you don't even value are relevant. I mean, it's also because of the part of the world that we're from. It's not something, nobody applauds you for being a volunteer. Nobody says, oh, well done, fantastic. But when you're applying to schools, regardless of where they are in the world, it does matter to them, right? So make sure you're thinking about all the experiences that you've had. And I trust that, a lot of them will count for something.
Thank you, Ife. Before we close, see, this thing Ife said. Mama, you want to say something?
Yes. So I think there's something we mentioned today that I don't think people are already practicing. And it's something that I mentioned to Samuel earlier today. When people reach out via LinkedIn, to be honest, no matter who you are, like, as long as I don't know you or you don't know the person you're reaching out to, there should always be a note. I don't know how else we can say this, but you shouldn't reach out to people without sending a note, assuming that they can read what intentions you have, like, no matter who it is, like, even if it's a Nigerian and African, and that's why we kept saying that we have a document where, like, each and every one of us has like documents where we have our introductions for different people. Like I always had an introduction for like admission. I had a different introduction for current students, alumni. Please, guys. I think if you don't even take away anything from this session, but please don't send out LinkedIn requests to anyone without properly introducing yourself and your intentions for connecting with them. It is, I think it's also a way of selling yourself and getting in front of people easily. Like when I see people sending like requests without, I think it's just very, it doesn't mean you don't want the person to actually know you. You just want the person to accept. Like, how we have like social networks and stuff, right? People just add you, yes, it's all right. But I feel like if you have a purpose, if you want to be noticed, if you want to stand out, please, like, always include, even if it is, see, just introduce yourself, just figure out, and this introducing yourself as well can follow the structure and that's why obviously this session is being recorded, so you can always go back to it. Just go, think about, just write your name, just write how many years of experience you have. You can even tell the person how fantastic their profile is, or maybe you are interested in what they're doing. Do you understand? And that's why you would like to connect with them. And then from there you can build. But when you don't, obviously, the person will just accept, and then you assume that there would be some sort of communication. No, you are always on the end of driving conversation. That's what you always realize. And I think that even till the time you get a job, even when you are in your job, right? Like, think about consultants, every single person, right? I think our corporate environment is different, because our corporate environment in Africa is your boss always comes to you. No, this one, you are going to everybody, like, no matter who you are. Do you understand? There's no hierarchy when it comes to connection. Do you understand? There are people that have been, like, Ife has been able to connect with CEOs, and to be honest, like, she's not even a CEO herself. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, so I think it's just very, very, very powerful when you realize the access you have to your network. And the thing is, the moment you send out a LinkedIn message and you don't even, a LinkedIn request, and you have lost an opportunity right there and then, because you are now going to go and join everybody in the person's inbox that has sent messages and the person never really reached out. So do you understand? And there's so many opportunities when it comes to that. So I'm just going to say that I am all for you crafting your story and everything, but if you cannot really network, I think it's an opportunity for you to start. You can start with people here, like all of us in this session, for example. If you added us and you sent us a note, to be honest, I'm sure any one of us will be able to even help you and say, okay, you know what, I think you can do better with this. Like, that's why we have a platform like this, because we don't want Africans to continue making the same mistakes that we made. Like, the idea is for all of us to be able to learn and help you and help the other sets of people that will come after you and everyone else. But if you don't take away anything, but please, like, please, and I'm begging, like, I'm all for LinkedIn. I'm all for how you put together yourself, because I feel like every one of us wants everyone else to succeed. Like, all of us, we want everyone else to succeed. And we don't want Africans to be lacking behind. Like, we do not, because I feel like we have a lot more to offer than the world has already seen. So we shouldn't misrepresent ourselves. We should always come up and show up for ourselves.
Look, one thing I'll add to that is also be very deliberate. So if you're interested in sustainability, seek out people in sustainability and add them. Because it's something if I kind of alluded to, because it increases your chances, because it's like when you're not in that community, when you start finding other people, when they see that, this person knows this one, there's a stronger chance that they will add you. And that's something that's been really working for me. Like, I'm very deliberate. Like, me, I had African MBAs. As long as you're African, Nigerian, and I have an MBA, I'll add you. I had people in PE, in VC, like and now when I'm finding other people, do you understand? They will see that's already had 5 mutual connections, 10 mutual connections. So do you understand? People will take you more seriously when into that. And this is really going to be my last statement. And the other thing, that if you are struggling with your story, do you know what you do? When you fashion your CV into one page and use strong action verbs and whatever, if you are struggling with how you do your resume, there's this Harvard resume extension thing. Just Google it; it will come out. You'll find it. When you made it one page, most of these admissions, they usually have free 30 minutes. Go and subscribe for those 30 minutes. Listen to their feedback. They will tell you your story. They will be the ones. They will use that 30 minutes. They'll start highlighting aspects of your application that you don't even think is important, because they think different from us. And many times we can look at our own CV and say, it's not as special now. What have I done? It's not as But from the way they ask you questions, when you see that another admissions person is pointing and that last person pointed it out, and the last person, then you just know that there's something here. Maybe this is the place I should start looking to craft my story. That was one thing I also did when I was struggling to kind of be coherent in the way I articulate my story. This has been a fabulous session. Hosanna, you didn't say anything today. What's up? Are you there? Okay, so yeah, so except we have few, anyone has a question, you can put it in chat box or you can unmute yourself, and I'll just give me 5 minutes for that, so that, because we've had a really, really fruitful session today. Someone is asking me for Harvard link. Please explain. I don't understand. Could you please explain what you mean? Sorry, it was a private message. Okay, so in that case, I want to thank everyone.
Yeah? Sorry, there are a few messages that we didn't attend to, so I can
say. Sorry, I don't have them.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, so I can read this out. So this is
okay.
Chinima. So Chinima asked a question earlier
about
what should be the best way to pitch a catchy story to make it seem like you're gonna still do it, just that you're unable to do it now. I think selling your dreams and selling your dreams and aspirations, to be honest, is always the most exciting things. Like I mentioned earlier, every admissions person, even alumni, for example, like when you tell them things you aspire to do, trust me, they want to know that this person is coming to my school. They will fight for you to come to your school. Like it's crazy, right? Because even current students, like when you introduce yourself to some of them in some of these sessions, I think if you are, I told Ife something, I think last year, I had a session with someone and the person was so amazed at my experience, to be honest. Like the person was immediately doing email introductions to their other classmates to speak to me. And those set of people also helped to prep me for interviews. Those set of people went to admissions team to mention my name, that saying that, you know what, this person, we had spoken to this person and we think that this person is a good fit. In fact, they were so sure that I was coming to their program because they felt that, you know what, I would be a good addition to their entire community or their school's brand. So everybody wants to be on the winning team, whether or not it's direct or indirect. Do you understand? Like, think about it. For example, people say, oh, this person is an Harvard alumni, right? They will still farm the person, even when the person was not in their class. It's the fact that they all went to the same school. That's what matters, right? So it just means that they're accessible to you and it's a network they can tap into. So when you want to tell stories, you don't have to have achieved it now. And you should also be very transparent as to why you have not even been able to achieve it. If you don't have the adequate knowledge, for example, and you feel like an MBA would help you, these people can see through good stories. Like, obviously you can watch them easily, but just ensure that you have a soundproof story. You have a fantastic background to support what it is that you say you want to be able to achieve. Like, somebody like me cannot say that I want to start, I don't know what it is, like I want to do biotech or something. Like, I have no passion for that. But if I had a story that was very similar to that, maybe one of my siblings or something like that, I could tie that to my tech experience. Yes, if it works, but just ensure that whatever it is that you are selling, people can really buy into it, not because you're just packaging it, but you have proof to show that, yes, it can work. So I think that's the best way to really talk about how to sell your pitch, about your future ambitions. And see, people are always very happy to hear, because I think what we also realize in the corporate world is that everything is very static. Everybody's working for clients, everybody's doing this for the company. So when they see that you are somebody that envisions, right, in terms of you want to be an individual, trust me, and people have seen tech guys make it, like tech, inventors, everybody has seen that there's a lot of money into it as well. Publicity, everything that has to do with it. So everybody would want to be a part of like whatever journey it is that you feel like you are going on right now. So I don't think you should be shy to be able to talk about it. As long as you have spoken to people around you, maybe your colleagues, your good friends, and they're like, oh, fantastic, this is a soundproof idea. Do you understand? This is something that you can tell the school that you are aspiring to do, or talk to students and say that this is something that I'm interested in. I think it's good to go.
So guys, I would just say you are the prize, right? These schools don't have anything to sell if they don't have students, right? So I think you just want to make sure that you are a prize that everybody wants to come, right? So you are the superstar here. You are the one, that gives this school its brand, right? Every school wants to brag about the students that they have, you know, who has, I mean, you see a lot of things, you read a lot of things, and you see that the schools are really just sending their students, right? Students who have gone on to start up their own companies, students who have gone on to take on different roles. Students, like, schools sell that. The students are they are the reason why those schools are bragging, right? So you must be a candidate that everybody wants to brag about, right? Everybody, people must want to brag about you. And that's only because of the kind of story that you've told them. Again, you want to remember that it's okay for you to get on the MBA program and totally change your mind about what you want to do. I personally thought that, on paper, that I could sell consulting more to schools. But the truth is, I don't want to do consulting. You know, I did a consulting project a few months ago with a friend of mine, some consultants and stuff. I was like, wow, this is great. I don't know that I want to spend a long time doing this. You know, I'm more passionate about tech, you know, but on paper and in person, I thought, you know what? I think, you know, putting everything together, I could sell consulting to them. And thankfully, I was able to. So it's okay to change your mind, but, you know, don't pick things that are too remote and they're struggling to see how is this person really going to fit, you know, try and be very spot on, very clear, you know, as you're trying to pass your message across. Again, I hope we've been able to help. I know we've spoken and spoken, you know, but I personally am happy to connect with people. If you have a bit more questions that we might be unable to take tonight. But yeah.
So we do have some more questions. Olamide, what do you think?
I can take, to be honest, I can fine taking some of these questions if everyone is fine. I think we can round up in 15 minutes, but I can touch on those two questions we have.
Yeah, from Miriam, right?
Yeah, so there's Miriam and Miriam. So the first question says, is when asked at the end of an interview, if you have any questions for the alumni, how do you position to stand out and not ask regular questions? I actually love this question because you want to ask interesting questions, but maybe from a different perspective. I think during the last session, we also touched on this, but I would typically ask questions, first things first, maybe an interview that has to do with maybe your MBA interview, for example, when they say, or maybe an informational session, I think you should always ask questions that is tailored to what you think about the program. So for example, please don't ask questions around scholarships because they always have those questions. They can answer those questions. You can see answers on their websites around those questions. But I think for questions like this, please focus. I would focus heavily on culture. And I will focus heavily on culture that is tailored to whoever is speaking's experience. So it's always very good for them to be able to talk about their experience as well. I think you can also focus on a bit around diversity. If you want to really understand what level of diversity, and diversity is not limited to just Africans alone. Diversity has to do with people from different race, underrepresented minorities, also women as well. If you want to understand what initiatives they have for people from different backgrounds, it's also something that is very good for you to understand as well. And then maybe one other thing has to do with whoever's experience it is. Maybe you might want to tailor something that has to do with their own experience in that program, if they're current students, or if it's an admissions that is telling you based on like why exactly did they choose that school from somebody else's mouth. Like you can be able to tell what exactly stood out for them when it came to that particular school or the particular program. But I think questions that you ask really does depend on how you would get responses or the type of responses you'll be able to get from people. And then the second question around who is ideal to write your reference for you. I think this really depends on you as a person. Well, most schools require 2 references, while some require just 1, but it is always very good for you to have somebody in the professional capacity if you have work experience. MBAs don't require references from like, I think professors or something, no, except maybe you were like a PhD students, but I know that you primarily need somebody in a professional capacity. So the options can be either from your office, somebody that works with you, or somebody that is your direct line manager. They also give you the options of maybe a business partner that works with you, for example. So maybe it could be maybe like someone, if you were working in an agency, for example, and one of your clients wants to be able to speak on your behalf. So yeah. Samuel, please, you can jump on.
So what do you say?
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay, great. To that question, I when I applied, I was about 5 years out of school. I still use my lecturer.
Oh, wow.
So it's not cast in stone. Sometimes maybe you don't want to let your office know you're applying. You're not too close to it's acceptable. There are also some schools that only require one recommendation. So if you're in a unique position, that's why I would say when you're picking schools, there's a whole lot of things that come into play. Something as easy as knowing that you can't get two people to recommend you will strike out some schools from your list, right? So I had my own boss who I was pretty much close to. I feel like it was more loyal to me than it was loyal to the company. So it was easy for me to tell him from day one that, look, 1 year down the line, I'm going to be applying to MBA program. And we kept it between ourselves. And he's not a small boss in the company, he's a major person in the company, but was, pretty much progressive than other people. So you can still get your lecturers. In fact, I got 2 of my lecturers. I was applying to a lot of schools, 2 of them, but you have to be careful. The letter of recommendation a lecturer would write is a letter of recommendation suitable for PhDs and masters. So you have to sit them down and tell them that the way they write MBA recommendation is different. They have to put in details. You have to remind them. Sometimes you may even have to craft certain things to help them. They call something recommendation package, where you include all the information that you want and send it to them. Some of them you have to go and meet them and sit with them and get that thing sorted out. So I just wanted to add that to it as well for those who may, maybe wondering how they're going to cross that ladder. But great session so far. I was taking notes as well.
Yeah, I want to say something about this. Now, in the US, I strongly recommend that you use your direct boss. Now, if you cannot, make sure you explain it in the optional essay. There are certain schools that are very, very, in short, I was saying at the beginning of the session that there's someone I'm kind of mentoring, and it was one of the feedback he got was that he did not use his immediate boss as his recommender. So they told him, he went to go and use one fancy person that went to Harvard. They said they don't want your boss. That's the person we want. So that's one. 2, if you cannot use your immediate boss, use somebody that really, when they say somebody is your supporter, people do write bad recommendations. I've heard it before. They will say yes, then they will write, they will tell the school, Ile, no way, don't try it. So make sure that person is in your corner. That person is ready to beat their chest for you. That is probably the best, the best way to think about it. And finally, if you are using an academic, now, if you are very involved in school, like you were vice president of one thing, all those people that...
Samuel, let's just say Samuel. If you were Samuel.
If you were Samuel.
If you were very involved in school, that you had a lot of contribution in school, they will accept it. But if you you don't have anything that shows that you are really doing anything in the school, it can be tricky. But for US culture, they don't really like academic. I believe that the Europeans and the Canadians are a bit more, they will accept it. But US,
I think no. So Ola, I don't think so. I won't address it that way, because I feel like it depends on how many years of experience you have. I don't believe that anybody would accept from somebody that has more than 5 years experience. I'm sure that they know that they wouldn't even want to hear from somebody that has not directly managed you in recent times. I think that's also something that you need to take into consideration, but I'm not sure it's about, sure it's about region.
Ola, if I may jump in, Ola, what I'd actually say is, I think you should look at it from, just like you said, the personal champion perspective, right? So at the time when I was actually applying to business school, I actually took some time off work to like focus on my application. And I didn't think that, getting like my most recent boss was like the best. I mean, you've worked with someone for a month or two and you're giving a recommendation, you understand, like that wouldn't have meant as much. So, because I get this question quite a lot. If, for example, let's say you just moved to a new company 3 months ago, or 2 months ago, you're not you're currently between jobs, it's better to get a direct supervisor from your previous job that you just left. But again, like Ola said, it has to be someone who can sell your beans, like can carry your matter on their head and say, I have, like, say things, not like this person is a leader, or like give examples. Whilst we worked on this project and everybody contributed, I can say that without Olamide's presence in this project, it would have failed. Like, you need people that would utter strong statements on your behalf. And then on the second thing about academic references, for example, if if you studied in Nigeria like the rest of us did, see, your lecturer is, I know some people like Sam have like outstanding lecturers, because I mean, come on, Sam, he has nothing else to write but good things. But for the rest of us, that our lecturer is just going to tell ADCO that, he did well in his research thesis and he had distinction, plus he has a CGPA of 4.9 something. If that's all your lecturer has to say about you, Ogbeni, move to one side, because your transcript already says that. So you have to give him more materials to work with. If you were in the leadership, you were an actor, you did ISEC, like you've had traction, exactly. Then and only then will your academic reference like carry as much weight. And then again, like Ola said, the experience. If you have more than 5 years experience, they can't really bank on the opinions of that person. So you remember this girl who going to Harvard, when she came on our session, she said it was her Sunday school pastor, that wrote her recommendation to HBS, because that was somebody she had worked with for 8 years, serving in the church for 8 years. And that was the person who wrote her recommendation, not her boss, who was the CEO of a large private equity firm. And, she had other bosses who had gone to HBS and Wharton and all that. The big names will not really, really help you. At the time, my boss went to HBS, but I couldn't ask them. So if I know you wanted to jump on.
Yeah, I think just piggybacking on what you said, I think one of the softer issues around references that a lot of people don't say, and for me was a very big factor, was you should also think about recommenders that you can manage, right? And I'll put that in context. You're trying to get the president of a country, the president of a company. Those people don't have time, to be honest. And a lot of times, even after you've given them a draft, they still don't have time to even take a look, right? And so when I say manage, I mean, for some people, you have to give them a deadline of 1 week ahead of the actual deadline. I did that, right? And one of my recommenders, it was that day, that 1 week earlier deadline, or that day that she submitted. I said, wait, so if I now give you the actual deadline, this is the way you want to have put me on high jump. Can you just imagine that? I would have just been going mental, really, right? One of my other friends, a recommender that he gave, I was just shouting at him, please stop stressing me. Do you understand? So you have to pick someone that you can manage. While I understand you might want to get some of the big names into your recommendation, which is fine, but can you manage them? A friend of mine, LBS, tossed out his application because his second recommender did not even submit. He didn't even know that the person did. How can you not even submit? What is that? Like, where do you can't even be angry because it has gone. Do you understand? So for me, pick people that if you buzz them on WhatsApp, they will answer you. They will not be angry. If you're applying to 5-6 schools and you say, please, you're the one that will recommend me for all the schools, they will not say, please, this your trouble is too much. You're not the only one applying to school.
On this point, I just wanted to say this. If you're applying to a lot of schools, like some of us did there, my boss got tired of submitting applications, and she told me that she said recommendations, and she told me that she was not doing any more.
You see that?
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and she told me at some point, she said,
my boss kept saying, Samuel, this is the last one. I'll say yes, sir.
This is the last one.
And then 2 weeks again, I'll put 3 together. You say, Samuel, this is the last one. I'll say yes, sir. And then another 2 weeks, I'll put in another one.
Your boss loves you.
I'm able to push that because that's relationships before you need it is quite important.
Samuel, in fact, I like the fact that your boss. So my boss, she just gave me a hint. So do you understand? She did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Don't tell me any other one.
She just said that.
Pull them together and go to there and sit with them like 30 minutes. And that's why you also need to put into consideration your recommender when you're applying to schools.
You have to. I think we did not do that. We did not do that.
There are schools that use the unified, I don't know what they call it.
Yeah, that was what I was going to, Samuel, the GMAC. That's what I was going to say. If it is they use the GMAC system, then it's pretty much switching names, really. Like if the school, so one of the things I do is that I check if they use the GMAC ones, right? It's something that you actually need to check so that if it's like, you just say no, for these schools, there's just a standard, it's basically one letter of recommendation because it's one format, right? For those specific set of schools. And then some other schools, then, you have to write a different thing.
For some schools, they even have it's not even a letter, it's a set of questions.
Yes.
Right? I know LBS have that. So you're probably providing a letter, a page or 2 for your recommender, and that letter should be answering those specific questions. You're trying to make the lives of these people as well. Because some people, they don't have time. Me, I know, because I work with people that I see don't have time. So it's not even like they're trying to shove you aside or something. They're genuinely busy. So for you to say you want them to prioritize your stuff, it's that once they open their computer, they must see everything they need to do to send that thing out in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. So please,
can I make a comment?
Okay,
yeah,
go Miriam.
Hi, sorry, I'm the one who asked about the recommender. I just want to reiterate what you guys have been saying. So I did a certification for my industry recently, and I had to do recommendations. So it was like a trial version for me. I took the route of selecting fancy up there previous managers. So one of my previous manager, he's currently like the super head of MasterCard, works in Dubai. His profile is on. He went to Harvard. I selected him. Then I selected a second manager who's like, just a normal guy. He works in First Bank, like Ola. I don't know, the lady, like she said, somebody you can manage, somebody you can call and speak English and beg, and somebody you can tell, oh God, please craft my distance this way. I'm begging your life, please. Somebody you can manage. So I had 2 of them. Do you know that up till today, the MasterCard guy has not done. I cried.
I'm not surprised.
I sent him.
I'm not
surprised. And what really saved me? What really saved me is that, like you did, I gave them a wrong deadline. I gave them like 2 weeks.
No, you have to do that.
After the guy said, I woke up last night and he sent me a message and said, I'm so sorry, I'm traveling the world, I'm so busy that I should write it and send to him.
Wow.
Wow.
I even had one. I said, this one, the recommender was even shouting. She was like, please, you need to dissociate yourself from this process.
I think what we also know, to be honest, it's not for somebody to do it for you. You have to beg because it's a lot of work. Even if they're just filling it in, it's their time. Like it is their time. Just understand how important it is to you. But one thing I would also add is that I know people who couldn't tell their line managers, and schools offered them the opportunity to be able to say, or waivers, right? Please never accept waivers for recommendation letters. Like if your school is offering that, we can waive this for you, please do not. Now,
and don't accept to read it.
Don't accept. Don't accept to read it because it means that you don't
click
trust.
on the permission to read it. Like you should just dig a hole, put your head inside, and forget applying to schools if you do that.
Yeah, but just ensure that when you are doing that, it's very, very important. What Samuel just said is very, very important. But I'll say that, see, there are options. You don't necessarily, and I say this, you don't necessarily have to use your direct line manager. You can use, there was a school that actually did tell me that I could actually use my colleague, and I used my colleague for one of them, right? So even if, but just ensure that this colleague is in a more senior role, even if it doesn't directly work with you, but you work, if your work intertwines sometimes as well, or you worked on similar projects together or something like that, that person can speak in a certain capacity about you or certain projects that you've worked on. One more thing that I wanted to mention about recommendation letter is that, yes, one size fits all, but also just remember that there are certain things that certain schools are looking out for in terms of leadership values that some recommenders can speak better in terms of, and some cannot. So I think you should remember that very well, because when they're using examples, for example, I wouldn't say somebody that maybe Ife was trying to position herself in terms of women, what initiatives she did in terms of women at certain places, right? A school that doesn't really bother about that, or isn't even part of their values, right? It won't stand out for them. So you might want to just think about what examples they use in their in the recommendation letters, even if this is the same prompt and it's GMAC, like all of them pretty much use GMAC, right? Just look at the prompts and how it really does align or tie back to what the school is looking out for in terms of leadership values, and how you as a person will be able to stand out in terms of that.
Yeah,
so
again, I didn't use any recommender from my current place of employment where I applied to business school from. So I was in a law firm, right? They didn't even know that I was applying to business school, right? So I used people from my previous work environment, someone also from, I do some writing and I use my editor. So again, it doesn't have to be people with brand names, right? Just people that can actually speak to specifics, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, so I think for me, the main thing is validation, because that's what the letter of recommendation is about. And it's validating certain things that you yourself has put forward as qualities that are about yourself. That's one. Two, I do believe that some schools are definitely more strict than others in certain sense of using your direct boss or not. I think it's something you should ask them also, just to be on the safe side. But I do know that certain schools are really strict about using your immediate boss. Samuel, you want to say something?
To be honest, Ola, they will not see. It's not about, nobody is going to tell them who you're. The only time they know who the direct person is when, so once you get admitted, there are some schools that actually do this Rivera check, right? It's only selected schools. Apart from that, if your school does not do Rivera, nobody really knows. But I'm just trying to say that if your direct line manager or your previous managers don't have your best interest, trust me.
Oh, don't use them more. No, of course, don't use them more. But I'm just saying that's why I said you need to, for some schools, if you don't use them, you should talk about it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but just look for somebody, like in my opinion, right? You don't have to if you don't feel comfortable. That's one. If there are other people that can speak to your, so for example, like if you maybe you were a junior manager, right? And somebody else in the management team can speak in your, like, about you as a person, as opposed to your direct line manager, that person is still considered as leadership in your company and should be considered.
I did not use my direct manager. I had someone in my organization or my previous organization who was literally my champion or a sponsor, and somebody who had always had my back. Like, I seriously had enemies. I literally had enemies, but she always covered me. Do you understand? So yes, I get it. I'm just pointing out there that there are certain schools that could be unreasonable about it. And I really just got recent feedback about this just like 2 weeks ago to validate that. So I'm not really just saying something,
Samuel,
out there.
Okay, sorry. Samuel, please, can you explain? We're just talking about waive your rights to read the recommendation. I think for the first time.
That's usually in the application. Sorry, go.
I think Temitope was already responding to that. Basically, when you're putting in your recommender's name and email, there's a checkbox that asks, do you waive your right to read or to preview this recommendation letter? What they're basically asking is, after your recommender sends it, do you want to view what that recommender has written? Your recommender would also get notified that the recommendation you're writing would also be previewed by the student you're writing it for. If you don't waive your right, what you're saying is you waive your right to read. But yeah, you don't trust who has written that recommendation from you. It's like you don't trust. And then the other person, you're also not giving them the freedom, according to this how the school system, you're not giving them the freedom to write what they should write about you. So don't ever click on waive it.
So
the only way, go back and ensure that whatever the person is typing for you, there are back end ways to do it, but don't do it at the front end.
yeah, so I'll add to this. There's actually a reason that thing came up. There was a case in Yale some way back. I read it somewhere that led to that being put in applications, right? Because the guy, they went to court about it. There was some kind of issue, and he wanted access to his application records. So that is why these things are. So it's kind of like there's also like a legal thing to it as well, but it also does communicate the things that Samuel talked about. So usually when you say, look, you are waiving that right, it makes the school also a little bit more comfortable as well in general.
Yeah, Ola, I saw something in the chat box. Yeah. So someone said, well, me, I want to read it before they send it. So here's the thing, right? If they are writing a recommendation letter for you, and you want to, check some things. There have been times when I think for one of my schools, I had to send the recommendation back to my recommender because I thought that, they needed like some refreshing of the work we've done together. And I basically helped them. I said, oh, do you remember this project? And sometimes you need to help these people because like everybody has said today, they are human and they are very busy and they are taking out time to help you with this thing. So forgive them if they miss out a few details about you. Essentially, what we're saying is in the application, when you're applying for business school, you would see, I wish to, or I waive my right to view this recommendation and I do not waive my rights. So what you want to select is I waive my rights, not I do not. Because waiving your rights means you basically let go of the opportunity to read that. It does not mean that you don't follow up your recommender on doing a thorough job of recommending. So I just wanted to clarify that so that that's not lost in communication.
So yeah. So I guess, about this recommendation thing, what I advise is use the STAR method, right? When you're preparing a package for your recommender, you have situation, task, action, results, right? You put a context, and in this project, you remember there was this project where we did this. You asked me to do this. This is what I contributed. This was the results. Just give them like a brief like that. Give them talking points in that specific manner that they can develop and they can remember and say, okay, oh, Ola or Franklin or Olainka or whatever, we had this particular project. He did this, and this was impressive because of this reason, and that sort of thing, so that they can actually demonstrate in a very specific manner what your personal qualities are, and they can say, oh, this is the kind of person that is going to be part of our community, basically. Okay, do we have anything else? Everybody's quiet now.
I think it's a good spot to wrap up. It's been a very lovely conversation.
Yeah, so I'd like to thank our panelists, Raimat and Ifelua for coming out to this, and our guy at the top, Samuel, who is not, who is somewhere in the enjoyment lifestyle at the moment. And everyone for actually coming onto this session, everyone who asked questions, Franklin, everyone who contributed. And I hope everyone has a sense or at least some direction as how to do this. I believe that this is recorded and uploaded on YouTube as well. So you can always go back to it. And please understand that this is a crucial aspect of your application. You have 1 year experience. Look, it will depend. Look for schools that different schools have. The higher the average number of years, the less likely, right? So it really is really what you already have that you can tell your stories around. Like we said, if you are Samuel and you're really active in your undergraduate years and you have experiences to speak to that will allow someone give you a chance in business school, then go right ahead. There's really no hard and fast rule about these
Emmanuel,
things.
even if you are Samuel, I will say no. Go and work more. I'm sorry, but that's just eating the nail on the head. Trust me, you may make good use of the MBA program. I'm not saying you won't, but waiting an extra 2-3 years would allow you even do more with that experience and opportunity that come your way. So again, that's just a straightforward answer. You might be older, you might be 36, and you just got 1 year of experience. Maybe that's different, but if you're young and you've got less work experience, add 2 more 3 years to it. And do 2 so that if you apply the first time and it doesn't work, you can add 1 more. By the time you're actually going, you have 5 years work experience.
Yeah, so honestly, the truth is that in business school, you will be more useful to people, most likely more useful to people, the more work experience you have, and honestly, people are going to only want people on their teams that contribute. So these are the kind of things that you're going to look, and MBA programs are very, very rigorous. So there's a lot that you need to think about. The application journey is really the beginning of your work. When you get inside, you just realize that it's what you did to get in pales in comparison for what you need to succeed in the program and for you to recruit and all kinds of things that are being thrown at you day to day. And thank you for thanking us. I really appreciate the thanks. And this is what we are here for. Thank you for being part of City of Lane. Spread the gospel of City of Lane. And also remember that LAMP applications are closing tonight. So if you're looking to mentor, please sign up. And if you want to be mentored as well, we're hoping that this year we can increase the conversion rates of people that actually get into programs, whatever the program is. And just remember, this is really a platform, this is a community, and there is a power in communities. You will understand that a bit better when you get into school. And these communities, everyone here is already a member of your network. And if you find anyone on LinkedIn, start adding yourselves on LinkedIn, start connecting, and just practice networking every day. To be honest, I will finish with this statement. I was saying that one Harvard VC guy interviewed me yesterday. He asked me a very strange question, and this is my last statement. He asked me, and his question was, what do I do when someone asks me for a favor? I was like, wait, please, what's this now? Is this some kind of riddle? As in, how am I even supposed to answer? What was my answer? I said, you pay it forward, or you find someone who can do what needs to be done. I said, for example, I volunteer with the City of Lane, and where I'm asked to help not only formally with certain things, but informally help you review your CVs. So why am I doing this? So that this other person can also do it for somebody else. So thank you, everybody, and have a good day.
Wait. Sorry. Before everybody goes, so a few things that we have lined up.
Okay.
So we have a few things lined up. Ola, you did not talk about LAMP. So we have a mentorship program. Today is actually the last day to be able to submit your application for the LAMP mentorship. And the idea is we would actually pair you up with a current MBA student or an alumni to actually help you through the MBA process. And this is actually very free, so you don't have to pay for that. So that's something that you need to actually know about. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry.
Ola mentioned that. Maybe it's deja vu.
Oh, I'm sorry. See, to be honest,
okay.
I'm sorry.
Our name is Ola, so we're always doubling.
I'm sorry, my brain is everywhere.
Please don't.
Okay,
let her. And she's even developing the idea, so it's good.
No, it's all right. So,
Yeah.
okay, so that's one. Two, we have a session next week. And the session is actually going to round up our series for this month. Our session next week actually does take into consideration the life of an MBA in some of the countries where we have Africans. So this was going to be exciting. So for current MBAs and first year, actually incoming MBAs as well, we have a session tomorrow on recruiting for operations. We have another next week for recruiting in tech industries in different parts of the
Franklin,
world.
please help.
And finally, I think we would like to share some links with anyone that would actually like to join the Lane community as well, if you have not already joined.
Mhm.
I don't think we have put the link up in recent times, but I think we can put it up immediately. So thank you very much. And also, yes, like Ola was talking about in terms of volunteering, if you are interested in volunteering for Lane as well, we have a lot of openings on their programs and other units for Lane. So please feel free. Oh, wait, did we talk about MBA for Africa?
No, not yet. Well, please talk about it.
Okay. I think I will leave it fair to talk about it.
Okay, fair. Help.
Okay, so very quickly, oh my gosh, guys, it's almost 2 hours, 30 minutes. I don't know how you guys still here. Oh my God. Very quickly, MBA for Africa, the idea of this is we bring together select schools from different countries to really come and talk to us about the MBA program. There are always so many exciting benefits to this. Some of these schools give us application waivers. Essentially, they try and butter us up to apply to their program, and I think it's a great way to get to know the schools, to get to know what they're looking for in their applications, to get to start making all these connections and networking, and putting it to the test like what we've spoken about today. So look out for it. We will be bringing that to you in a bit. And thank you so much, guys, for having us. This was so exciting. I didn't know that I was going to talk my head off today like this. I thought I was going to probably be chilling on my chair and laughing.
Definitely.
Thank you, guys.
And when you guys join for MBA for Africa, make affairs work very easy. When you start to, sign up for brochures and application fee waivers and everything, and they ask you, where did you learn about us, or where did you find out about us? In addition to Lane and every other place, City of Lane. City of Lane, give us the visibility we deserve. Thank you.
I don't like this shade. Lawyers enjoy talking. Please, what is that? Please. Well, thank you guys so much for sticking it out with us. We absolutely had a great time doing this. Thanks for having me and my friend Lab.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. It was an amazing session.
You did a kick-ass job.
Thank you.